Hi, boys and girls. This is Ms. Kathy. I'm so happy you've joined me today for another story just for you. Chapter 2, Underground Railroad. That was pretty scary yesterday, wasn't it? Maria said when she and Chris met up with Sammy and Dee Dee on the playground before school. Yeah, but I feel guilty for going into Mr. Chambers' house, Sammy said. That wasn't right. We were trespassing. I asked God to forgive me. I guess you're right, Dee Dee said, but the thought of ringing the bell and seeing Mr. Chambers up close was just too scary. Besides, Maria said, you didn't really go in, only your arm did. I think it was still wrong not to ask, Sammy replied. Well, Chris said, if Maria would learn how to pitch the ball right, we wouldn't hit toward the house. A lot you know about hitting the ball, too, Maria said. Chris ignored his sister and turned to Sammy. What was it you were telling us about the round window last night, he asked. You said something was really strange about the house. Sammy explained how the round window they could see from outside the house couldn't be seen inside the kitchen. But the window was only a few feet away from the window I was in, Sammy said, and there was no door in the kitchen leading to another room at the back of the house. He also explained how the back wall had two kinds of wallpaper on it. It almost looks like somebody extended the wall one time but couldn't find the same wallpaper to match. Maybe someone built a room off the kitchen with an outside entrance, Dee Dee suggested. Chris shook his head. Once I had to look for a ball that went into the trees behind the house. I was all along the back of the house. There's no back door. That's why I said it was a weird house, Sammy said. That round window has to open up somewhere inside. Just then the bell rang and the kids filed into their classrooms. Sammy liked school. He liked to learn new things. Sammy really liked to read about history. His favorite period of history was the Civil War in the 1860s when the North fought the South over the issue of slavery. They were studying about the slaves in history class. Listen up, class, Mrs. Parker said. We've been learning about how the slaves lived on the southern plantations. We've discussed their long work days and about how they were frequently mistreated simply because they were black. The white plantation owners didn't think the black people were as good as they were. These wrong beliefs and hatred of the black people were then passed on from generation to generation. Yes, Sammy? But why didn't the slaves just leave the plantations if they were mistreated, he asked. That's a good question, Mrs. Parker said. But they couldn't leave. They were owned by the plantation owners and couldn't leave unless the owners freed them or gave up ownership of them. That was the law at that time. But why, Sammy insisted, didn't they try to sneak away? That, Mrs. Parker answered, is exactly what we're going to talk about today, the Underground Railroad. A railroad that went underground? Maria asked. Mrs. Parker smiled. No, it wasn't a real railroad at all. Underground meant it was secret. It was really a series of safe houses that a runaway slave could hide in as he made his way from the southern slave states of Virginia, the Carolinas, and Georgia, to free states in the North, such as Pennsylvania and New York. Slavery was illegal in the North, so if a slave made it there, he was safe. But couldn't the slaves be found at these houses? Maria questioned. I mean, the slave owners would be looking for the escaped slaves. Couldn't they just check inside all the houses in the area? That thought occurred to the people who hid slaves in their houses, Mrs. Parker answered. That's why these people often made secret entrances into their houses so no one could see the slaves come in. Many also made secret hiding places for the slaves to stay out of sight. Some even created secret rooms in their houses or barns. Bells and whistles went off inside Sammy's head. A secret room! That's what is wrong with Mr. Chambers' house, he thought. There must be a hidden room between the kitchen and the back of his house, right where the small round window is located, and where the wall curved and the two wallpapers met must be where a room has been added on. But why? There was never an underground railroad in this area. Why would anybody need a secret room? Sammy! Sammy! Mrs. Parker called. Sammy jumped. He had lost track of the class discussion. Sammy, Mrs. Parker said, I was asking the class if anyone would like to do a report on secret hiding places and rooms of the Underground Railroad. When you didn't raise your hand, I knew you hadn't heard me. Would you like to do the report? It will count as extra credit. Sure, Sammy said. He didn't care about the extra credit. He planned to do research at the library about secret rooms anyway. In the lunchroom, Sammy and Maria found Chris and Dee Dee, and they sat down at a table together. Sammy told Chris and Dee Dee what he and Maria learned in history class that morning about the Underground Railroad. They used secret rooms to hide the runaway slaves, Sammy said. And you know that little window opens up somewhere inside Mr. Chambers' house. Why don't you all come to the library with me after school? I'm doing a report on secret rooms in houses that were part of the Underground Railroad. And maybe we'll learn something about secret rooms in houses in this part of the country. Dee Dee, Chris, and Maria looked blankly at Sammy. What do you care about secret rooms in Mill Valley houses? Maria asked. Sammy sighed. Because, he said, I think there's a secret room in Mr. Chambers' house.
The story you have heard today is a chapter of The Shoebox Kids, Book 9, The Secret of the Hidden Room, written by Nancy Speck, edited and created by Jerry D. Thomas, and used with permission from the Pacific Press Publishing Association. If you're interested in any other books published by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, please visit AdventistBookCenter.com or call 1-800-765-6955.
This podcast is a production of the Carolina Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.